Chapter 4. Outside the radio station, Amardeep's last statement raced across the airwaves. It was breaking news. The listeners of the show who had read Raven's love story were in a state of shock. They chatted among themselves to reconfirm if what they heard was correct and if others were aware of this. The traffic on the fog-smoothed road of Chandigarh almost halted. The news, which emerged from Superhits 93.5 Red FM, now traveled through various mobile phones as well. The flurry of phone calls and messages flying from phone to phone had surged to a level never witnessed in the past. More people tuned in, wondering what happened to Raven. The TRP ratings for the show skyrocketed, breaking every record that any radio station would have set in Chandigarh. There was pin-drop silence in the cars, homes, and surroundings of the radio listeners. There was shocked listeners, heartbroken readers, and a mass of curious people desperately waiting to listen to Amardeep's voice again. Back in the radio room, the scene was complicated. The self-confident Shambhavi was not stunned, una- unable to believe what she had just heard. She simply muted the speaker and held her hand on her forehead in wonder. Looking at her guest, she was angry and at the same time clueless. It was unusual for any radio channel to have complete silence when the RJ and guests were present in the station. No talk, no songs, no ads, just a chaotic emptiness. The listeners were already energized to know what had actually happened. Shantanu was trying to tell you this when you ignored him, said Happy slightly to Sambhavi. Sambhavi quickly regained her feet on the ground and yelled, But you guys could have still revealed this to me? My entire script for this show had turned obsolete. Visibly angry, she laughed out at everyone in the room. Don't worry, we have the script with us, said Manpreet placatingly. What do you mean, you have the script? She retorted. Allow us to speak to the listeners, and you will find out, said Happy. Considering the current situation, Sambhavi knew she didn't have much choice. Amardeep went live again. Amardeep went live again, and that was a relief to the listeners, who by now had assumed the long break in the broadcast to be a technical glitch. Amardeep resumed his part of the speech. He spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. Certainly, he said, he stopped for a while. This signal word was significant to alleviate the listeners' anxiety and hook them back to the show. He continued, Certainly life hasn't been good to him, else the guys who taught many of us what love is wouldn't have lost his battle of life because of his loss in love. You mean he could not bear the loss of his girlfriend? Shambhavi asked the question live on radio. Everyone both inside the radio station and outside listened with bated breath. Yes, came Amardeep's reply, but we thought that after penning down his tribute to his girlfriend, Revin was successfully able to bring himself back to life. Yes, he was. Happy repeated. Then, what happened then? Shambhavi demanded in an interrogative tone, as though she hoped that whatever she had heard a few minutes back wasn't true. He failed to do so when something similar happened for the second time. There was a monumental silence. Clearing her throat, Shambhavi asked, second time. Amardeep didn't look at her, but kept his eyes glued to the microphone. He inhaled and exhaled deeply before he slowly spoke again. Yes, the second time. Not many people know this. Years after Khushi was gone, love knocked at Raven's door for the second time, revealed Amardeep. Hearing this, Shambhavi smartly announced the next song to be played on the show and proceeded with the same. She utilized this time in understanding what was on Amardeep's mind. The four of them had a round of quick talks to answer Shambhavi's query. Learning what was on their agenda, Shambhavi underwent a state of metamorphosis. All of a sudden, she discovered a great show ahead and scribbled some ideas onto a piece of paper in front of the others. She shared how she wanted to choreographed the remaining part of the show and extracted a promise from everyone that there would be no more surprises for her. Having prepared herself the next time they went on air, she said, Raven, to me, this is the name of a brave man, a man who fell in love with the utmost commitment to his beloved, a man who his pious tribute to his dead girlfriend brought her back in this world, a man who had been brave enough to yet again allow love to make its way into his life. Though the truth of the moment is ritual, there is an untouched subject which, on this Valentine's Day night, we want to touch base with. Apart from Raven's friend here on the show, no one knew that Raven was writing his second book, a story about himself which he has unfortunately not been able to complete. And I am glad to state that our guests here on this show have got that incomplete book of Ravens with them. Yes, for the very first time, we are going to hold a reading of Raven's most awaited second novel. Can Love Happen Twice? Perhaps something like this is happening for the first time in the history of radio. So, all you listeners, stay tuned to listen to this first ever live reading of an unpublished book when we return. Till then, here goes the next song for you. The next song occupied listeners for a couple of minutes, which made the listeners more anxious. Outside the audio room, staff members of the radio station could be seen pressed against the glass window of the wooden door, making frantic gestures that seemed to ask, what the hell is going on? Shambhavi simply smiled back and made some crazy gestures with her hands, assuring the staff members that she would handle the situation, but the crowd still remained giving back counter gestures. It was a chaotic situation for the listeners of radio as well. Many of them were emotional. Many had no clue of what was happening, but overall everywhere wanted to know exactly what happened to Raven after Khushi and, more importantly, what series of events made him land up in a rehabilitation center. A lot of action followed in the next few minutes. Everything that ran in the radio station ran fast. Time was limited and a lot was needed to be done. The focus had now shifted from Ravin's first book to his second. Shambhavi picked her extension phone only to give brisk commands like common in ASAP, interrupting the mutual discussion between Happy, Manpreet, and Amardeep. She burst the bell. Guys, where is the book? Happy picked up his bag, which he had placed on the door beside his chair, and answered, Here. All right, who is going to read it? Sambhavi raised with her next question. Everyone among us, Manpreet answered. Be specific. Who is going to start it? I will, asserted Happy. Sambhavi's eyes were on her piece of paper. Her right hand was visually jotting down the next course of action. Her left hand was busy gesticulating to the other door, at times pushing the strands of her hair behind her ear. How many papers are there? I am sure you don't plan to read the entire book. How long will it take? Hearing no response for a while, she lifted her gaze from the paper to the three friends. As her eyes followed them, she gave a knowing smile and spoke. All right, I know what that silence means. You can start reading it. I will ask the program scheduler to extend this show beyond the allocated time. We will have to take a few approvals. So, what? Won't the publishers of Raven's book mind narrating the whole story prior to getting it published? The question brought forth a smile on the three other faces. Publishers won't publish an incomplete book. When Raven gets better and it is the pink of health again, he will complete it and get it published. Moreover, Raven hasn't signed any contract for this book yet. So, you see, we have all the liberty, Manpreet replied. But for how long can it go on? See, about 2 hours if you do not play the music and advertisement in the middle. We may even skip a few pages which we now are yet to be edited. I can't do away with ads for sure, but yes, I can reduce the number of songs to a great extent, started Sambhavi. Meanwhile, Shantanu came in rushing with a pen and a diary. He knew that his madam was going to give him a dictation before the poor chap could say even a yes ma'am. Sambhavi scolded Shantanu like an angry lioness pouncing on a helpless lamb. That doesn't mean that you appear after 5 minutes. All Shantanu could utter was madam, after which his voice rose somewhere in his Adam apple and failed to come out. Only his lips moved and puffs of beer mixed with stands of saliva leaked out. Happy wondered what made Shantanu not quite this radio channel. Anyway, three things. Sambhavi dictated. First, call the boss and explain to him that we are stretching this show for an unknown duration. Shantanu again wanted to say something but not surprisingly was cut off before he could speak. Just listen. Explain to him that is very important for our channel. feed him the fact that Superhit 93.5 Red FM is hosting a book reading of an unpublished book and the fact that no other radio channel has ever done this. Second check with Siddharth in the broadcast room. Ask him to get in touch with our station in other metros and broadcast this book reading there as well. He has done the vice versa for us before. And this time we need other reasons to broadcast our program. If he asks for the boss approval, ask him to SMS me. Third, no one should leave the office before the show finishes. Neither the technician, the broadcasting team, the scriptwriter, the creative department, nor the ads department. I may need anyone anytime. Shambhavi truly was the station's star RJ, which probably gave her a lot of importance at Super Hits 93.5 Red FM. In that dimly lit radio room, Happy moved to the other side of the table. Shambhavi passed the microphone to Happy and switched on the overhead focus light, which fell straight on the table. The radio room turned brighter. Under the beautifully failing beam of light, Happy placed the diary on the table and opened it. This very fact of opening that diary appeared both heavenly, as though the diary was a holy text, and emotionally charged as well. Everyone just kept looking at the diary, for it was Raven's diary, their beloved friend's diary, which contained his handwriting thoughts, and which now compensated for Raven's absence. The next time when they went on air, Shambhavi updated all the listeners, and the show that night would continue for an indefinite time, and that it was going to be the very first time in the history that a show would run for an unspecified duration. In the world outside the radio station, Raven's fans were very much willing to listen to Raven's story, irrespective of long time the broadcast would last. Happy started reading Raven's second book, Can Love Happens Twice? Chapter 5. A year and a half had passed since the tragic incident had taken place. Unable to cope with the misery, I was looking for a big change. Fortunately, an on-site opportunity for a project in Belgium gave a ray of hope to that much-needed change. I availed that opportunity. It was the month of January, and Brussels, the capital city of Belgium, was witnessing the last few weeks of winter. It was noon, I guess around 12:30 p.m., when I walked to my hotel room in Brussels. It was indeed a delight for me to walk into that beautiful room with lovely interiors, beautifully textured wall and an excellent lighting schemes. Even the air in there was very refreshing. It was warm inside and quite calm as well. I went headed to explore that room, which was going to be my temporary home for the next few days, in greatest detail. As I walked in, my leather boots made that artistic tapping sound on the wooden floor. The wall on the other side of the room was hidden behind a giant curtain. There was a long string dangling beside the curtain. On pulling it, the curtain parted, and the next moment took my breath away. From behind the glass wall of the room on the 18th floor of the hotel, Tulip Brussels looked mesmerizingly beautiful. I could see almost the entire city. My eyes were glued to the panoramic sight of a scene and cold Belgium afternoon. Scores of skyscrapers, which while standing slightly right in front of me, also seemed to compete with each other to kiss the sky, filled my view from left to right. White smoke from various massive chimney outlets installed on the terrace of the building, walls coming out dreamily far down. I could see various road networks with the traffic racing on them. The glass wall seemed soundproof as I could hear nothing. Yet I imagined the sound of the fast cars on the road. I imagined the whistle of the wind that was blowing outside at that level. I imagined the voice of the people walking on footpath. I imagined it all. I stood there for a while in the pin-drop silence of my cozy room, imagining all kind of noise. I was enjoying being there almost in the sky, and with the beautiful city stretching out below me. In a few moments, nature started painting everything white. Teeny flakes of snow whirled right in front of my nose. The sky at that altitude was getting swathed in a sheet of white snow, and I watched that street becoming gradually more dense. I could feel the magic of the weather outside. I wanted to capture the moment in pictures, but I couldn't. Then and there, I wanted to write a few lines of what I was experiencing, but I couldn't leave the focus. I didn't want to lose a single second of it. Everything out there was turning to white. The buildings, the roads, the air, and everything else. I stood with my palms stretched against the glass, frozen like a statue, and watched those flakes swirling down till they lost their individuality and become a part of the homogeneous cluster of white. I don't remember how long I stood there. A telephone rang on my room's phone broke my reverie. It was Sanchit, a colleague as well as a friend, who was the only Indian whom I knew in Belgium. Belgium, who was the only Indian whom I know in Belgium. While he was the development lead of our project, I was the test lead. Sanchit has come on site a month periodically, and this helped me to easily settle down in Belgium. Okay, see you then in half an hour, I murmured in a daze, religiously following the Indian tradition of procrastinating. The co-called half an hour was stretched to 1.5 hours before Sanchit finally knocked at the door. Hey, hi! We were glad to see each other. We shook hands and gave each other a wide hand hug. Though we would never met this way ever when we were at our office in India. Things change when two Indians meet abroad. Sanchit was clad in heavy, warm clothes from head to toe. Wow, he said as he walked towards the glass window and turned back to see the rest of the room, smiling appreciatively. How much? Some 80 euros per night. He answered his own question with a witty smile. Yup, and not bad when the company is paying. I answered, pulling out some Indian snacks that I had got from home. He jumped to grab his chair. In the evening, we walked out of the hotel to Wuhan. No, Sanchit explained to me, not. me that Nord in French meant north. Brussels Nord was the nearest station from where we were supposed to catch the metro to go to Sanchez Place. It was very cold outside. The temperature was around 2 degrees Celsius. I could barely take my hands out of my overcoat pockets. On the way, Sanchit stopped at a Pakistani shop from where he bought himself a pack of cigarettes. Meanwhile, I used to shop's IST booth to call my parents back home and update them that I had reached safely and was doing well. I enjoyed observing people and the vicinities we passed by. The station we were in was quite high-tech with a three-level transport system. On the ground level ran the trains, on the level below ran the metros, and further below ran the trams. Sanchit had a monthly pass to avail the public transport across Belgium, and on his suggestion, I too got one for myself. While we were in the train, Sanchit updated me with various facts about Belgium. The country is bilingual. Half of the country, including Brussels, speaks French and the other half Dutch. Belgium is famous for Belgian chocolates, Belgian beer and Belgian girls. I was yet to check the first two facts. The last one was an omnipresent truth. Belgium has a monarchical system of governance and has legalized gay marriages. The fact that interested me most was that taking advantage of Belgium's centralized location, the best among some of the European countries, I could easily visit the nearby countries such as France, Germany, the UK, and the Netherlands. By late evening, we were at Sanchez House. I found it to be nice and cozy, although a bit cluttered since Sanchez had washed his clothes and had placed them here and there to dry. It was a costly house, but Sanchez had taken it because his wife was supposed to join him in a week's time and he had chosen the house as per his wife's preferences. At that time, she was back in India. I settled into the couch in the living room area and he switched on the TV. Sanchez brought two cans of beer from the fridge and we relaxed for a while, enjoying the much touched Belgian beer. Soon our conversation moved to the official things, the client, the project, the office location, the good official things and not so good ones. We cooked dinner for ourselves, after which I caught the late night metro back to Brussels Nord. I slept in my hotel room. The glass wall on my left side still remained there without the curtain, treating me to a beautiful night-time view of the city. My sleep broke. Chapter 6. The next morning, I was at my client's office. It was on Genbourg Street in Mechelen. Mechelen is another city in Belgium, and unlike Brussels, this part of the country has a Dutch-speaking population. Straat in Dutch means street in English, and Gendoorstraat was the street address of my office. The initial few hours at my client's office passed well. Primarily, my task involved greeting everyone, meeting them, introducing myself, and listening to their share of their introduction. My other important task for the day was to set up my workstation, which I successfully did by noon. Let's go for lunch, Sanchez suggested. There is a sandwich shop nearby from most of us go, unlike India, where a sandwich is more like a snack. In the West, it is more of a meal, having lived in various countries. I have adapted to every kind of meal by now. Sanchit and I joined Anthony for lunch. Anthony Gomes was one of the various clients' point of contact for us. Anthony Gomes was one of the various clients' point of contact for us. His job was to deploy the project we built for him at the client's location. He was fairly pink in complexion with grey eyes and curly brown hair. It seemed he loved his wife very much. That's what I had made out from the picture of his wife that he kept on his desk. Our purpose to join Anthony was simple. He had a car and he too used to buy his lunch from the same shop. So it was a 10-minute walk to that shop. A 2-minute ride in Anthony's brand new Volvo was a far more attractive proposition than a walk. On our way to grab our lunch, I primarily interacted with Anthony. To my surprise, the eatery was actually a minibus, or to say it better, a van with no seats inside but a massive display box installed to exhibit a variety of sandwiches. Behind that display box was the service area where a fat couple was busy selling sandwiches. The place had a separate entrance and exit. The queue ran from the inside of the van to a good long distance outside, providing that this little dinner was doing good business. We joined at the tail of the queue. On Sanchez's suggestion, I chose keep set a chicken sandwich with hot chilies and plenty of salad. Anthony too picked the same. We paid and moved toward the exit. While coming out, I noticed that the queue at the entrance had extended further. We sat back in the car. As Anthony reversed his car, my eyes caught someone. Someone's back to be precise. She was a girl, the last person in the sandwich shop's entry queue. I was riveted by her. Those sleek white Puma shoes under the blue denim which ran up her legs before slipping under a black overcoat. Those earphones wires which ran across her united hair, untied hair that danced in sync with her shaking head and her tapping left foot. But all these were not the reasons why I noticed her. I was her complexion that caught my attention from a distance of about 20 feet, and the fact that she had her back towards me. I could only notice a few things about her, from the color of her hands and hair, and the barest hint of her profile, face, and neck. My best guess was that she was an Indian. I don't know why, but for some unknown reason I felt a sudden urge to look at her face. Besides, I wanted to make sure if my guess was right, but then Anthony dropped the vehicle out of the spot we were in and I missed my chance. Sanchit noticed me and then looked out of the car and then looked back at me. He raised his eyebrows questioningly. Nothing, I'm trying to remember the way. The, that said, the three of us got busy in a conversation of around. Then, as soon as I reached office, I got busy with my work. I had a few emails from my team back in India. By that time, people back at the offshore Indian office had come in and started their work too. Belgium time is 4.5 hours ahead of Indian time. During the daylight saving months in summer, the difference is decreased by an hour. The rest of my day went in talking, taking offshore calls, and resolving a few issues. It was 6 p.m. Other than Sanchit and I, everyone else had left the office by 4:30 p.m. only. We kind of maintained the tradition of Indian working for longer hours. Having completed my work, I was waiting for Sanchit to complete his. All of a sudden, Sanchit looked at his watch and then looked at me with a stupid smile. Then he asked naughtily, "How fast can you run?" Unable to understand his attention, I said, "Why are you asking this?" "Because we have 3 minutes to catch our last bus," he shouted, leaping from his chair, flipping his laptop screen shut, slipping it into the laptop bag and running toward the door. "Faster than you!" I screamed in my client's office with no client in it. I chased him through the door, down the staircase, beside the exit, and finally overtook him before we hit the road. Sanchit's calculations had been absolutely right. The bus had just reached and we were the last two passengers to board it. Seconds before the automatic doors of the bus were to slide shut, we ran in. We high-fived each other and laughed, the pace of our breathing slowly returning to normal. It was a pleasure to find a few more Indians in that bus. In fact, there wasn't any Belgian native apart from the driver of the bus. This proved that not just Sanchit and I, but the rest of the many Indians in Belgium also worked late at their client's location. Sanchit introduced me to everyone. Most of the people in the bus knew each other. I learned that they all worked in nearby places, and almost all of them met each other in buses on weekdays and at each other's homes on weekends. I chit-chatted with them for a while. A little later, I finally relaxed in one of the back seats. I was tired. Soon I was lost in my thoughts. I thought of the Belgian driver driving all the Indians back to their respective homes. I thought of the taste of Kip State sandwich that I had eaten for the first time that day. I thought of that girl in front of the sandwich shop whom I had failed to see that afternoon. I thought of the weird anxiety I had while trying to see her face. I thought of how I seemed to have felt a strange connection with her. I thought of the snow I had witnessed on my first day in Belgium, and I looked up to the sky wondering when it would snow next. I thought of my mom back in India, and I thought of my past. I thought of Hushi. Chapter 7. By the weekend, I had managed to find a house to rent for myself. Luckily, I found one in McLean itself. As my house, as my office was in McLean, I preferred to live there. My office was a 10-kilometer ride in the bus. In a 16-floor building, my apartment was on the first floor. It was a nice place to live in. It had a spacious dining room, a nice kitchen, a cozy bedrooms, a neat and clean tiled bathroom, and a huge balcony. And just like the hotel's room, glass wall, the entire balcony wall was made of glass with sliding doors. There was a shutter on the hood of the glass wall which automatically came down just like an automatic garbage door. When the power button installed on the adjust wall was pressed, I loved opening up the shutter in the morning to welcome the sun's first rays and then shutting it at night before going to bed. Every room had a heater installed to make the rooms warm during winters. I had to use them. There was one in the bathroom as well. My house was fully furnished with a TV, sofa, dining table, and bed. I loved the furniture and texture of the interiors. As soon as I got my white card, an ID card for foreigners living in Belgium, I installed a nameplate at the entrance. I read my name. It is mandatory to put up your nameplate in Belgium. In a day or two, I settled down well and my life rolled smoothly. I would wake up in the morning, get ready, and prepare breakfast for myself. Then I would catch the 9 a.m. bus to reach office. By 6 p.m. in the evening, I would leave office and go to the gym, which was near my office. At night, I would cook dinner. Later after dinner, I would have a cup of coffee and stand in the balcony with my laptop playing all the Hindi and Punjabi songs in my collection. Sometimes standing there late into the night, I would see the red lights of the plane in the sky. I would love to believe that one of the planes among them was going to India. Before sleeping, I would pull down the balcony shutter and fall into my bed, exhausted but happy. My apartment building didn't have a single Indian. Most of the people who lived in the building spoke either French or Dutch. English to them was a third language, more of a sign language. In fact, Sanchit lived far away from me in Brussels, and his wife had joined him by now. Hence, I couldn't visit his place very often. I lived alone, I cooked alone, and I ate alone. There wasn't anyone to talk to because of the language barrier, yet I did manage to cope with life interesting challenges in Belgium. After all, they were not as brutal as the ones I had been through. Chapter 8. It was my second week in Belgium. One evening, I was running on the treadmill in the gym. In the mirror in front of me, I noticed a face, a girl's face. As a matter of fact, a good-looking Indian girl, and she had just entered the gym. She halted right behind my treadmill. I could see her in the mirror, which also meant that she could see me as well. Perhaps she was there to say hi to a fellow Indian, which was of course me. Hence, while I ran, I kept looking at the mirror, expecting to greet her back. However, I soon realized from her body language that she was there not to greet but to use the treadmill after I got down. How many minutes more? Came a question from my right. I turned to see a young woman. She was Indian beautiful, and so was her voice. Her round neck, pink t-shirt elegantly revealed a part of her poised figure. Her tight-fitting black leotard ran all the way down her firm legs. She was very fiery in complexion. Her hair was drenched, probably with the sweat, and a few droplets glittered on her forehead. She was wearing a wristband, and she stood there looking at my face, munching some chewing gum, passing it from the left side of her mouth to the right and back again. Excuse me, she raised her hands with a sarcastic smile on her face. It indicated that she minded my staring at her. Honestly, I didn't have any bad intentions. All in all, I was surprised because my expectations of receiving warm wishes from another Desi award were shattered. Would you mind telling me for how long you will run? Sorry, I quickly apologized for not immediately answering her question. Then I quickly glanced at the display on my treadmill. I was still running. It's a 15-minute cycle and there are 10 more minutes to go, I said. 10 more minutes? She looked shocked. as though I had denied her the right to breathe for those 10 minutes. She held her mouth open for a few seconds. I could easily see the color of the chewing gum in her open mouth. But that's too long a wait for me. Oh yes, she actually said that. What is she? Miss India? Mama's pampered girl? Didn't even say hi and expect people to jump off a running treadmill. Gradually, her open mouth retained its previous form and the chewing resumed. Her eyes reflected unhappiness. She went back to where she had been standing earlier and waited for those year-long 10 minutes to pass. And what was I doing? I was actually enjoying that little friction we had had. I looked at her in the mirror and could feel her restlessness. She held her hand on her waist and kept looking here and there if she didn't care. Occasionally, she would twist her elbow and stretch her back. It was difficult for me to keep her smiling. To fuel her restlessness, I increased my speed on the treadmill. As soon as I did that, she pulled out her rubber band from her hair and started stretching it only to keep herself busy. The backward count on the display of my treadmill entered into the last few seconds of the 15-minute run. When exactly 10 seconds were left, Madam India was standing on my head again. I was truly having a difficult time trying not to laugh out loud and focusing on my run. The treadmill shot down automatically and suggested a cooling off period of 2.5 minutes. I ignored her and continued walking as if there wasn't anyone beside me. As I now walked on the treadmill, I pulled out my towel from the holder in the dashboard and I started wiping my arms and face. Of course, she didn't like it. She kept staring at me, trying to tell me that it was my time to get down, but I continued to ignore her. Excuse me, she said again. I gave her a look. Your 10 minutes are over now, she said that politely but sarcastically. I loved that na in the tail of her sentence. It contained an inherent desi touch. Yes, but the 15 minute cycle ends with a 2.5 minute cool off time. This is cheating here, she blurted childishly, her head bent on her left shoulder in total dismay. She became quiet after that. I simply loved her expression and whatever she was doing. She was candid and honest. It was just that she didn't appear mature enough. But it was a treat to come across such innocence. Not wanting to piss her off further, I pushed the stop button and stepped down. I thought she would thank me, but keeping up with her tendency to flout my expectations, she didn't bother to do that. I noticed that her face assumed an expression of relief. She chewed on her last lip while her eye twinkled triumphantly. Then she quickly filled the vacancy on the treadmill and ran with great enthusiasm. Chapter 9. The next afternoon, I was the same minibus eatery which sold sandwiches to grab my lunch. Sanchit and Anthony were busy in long conference call, hence I had walked alone to this place. As usual, there was a long queue, and I only added to its length. The gentleman ahead of me initiated a conversation with me, and interestingly, I got quite involved in the discussion. As per the track record of my previous conversations, with the local people. The subject this time was again India. More than wanting to know things about my country, he was telling me what he already knew about India. Alright, so this guy was aware of who Amitabh Bachchan was, where the Taj Mahal was located in India, what the festival of Holi and Diwali looked like. The list of the things he knew about India was longer than the few words were worth standing in. Voila, I expressed. Voila is one of the most used French words to express a there you are message. I was kind of getting a hold on a few French and Dutch words and loved using them wherever they aptly fit in. I was listening to that guy's knowledge about India, but then all of a sudden something, or rather someone, grabbed my attention from the exit of that sandwich van. Came out the Indian girl whom I had interacted with one the previous evening in the gym. It took her a while to notice that I was there in the queue. I didn't expect her to talk to me, but as usual, she did the exact opposite of what I expected. She walked straight towards me. I lost interest in the conversation on India. The gentleman sensed it, but something in him made him keep going. I wanted to tell him, dude, why don't you go and settle in India? I was looking at her. The guy finally paused, broadcasting his documentary in India. Hi, she breathed very nicely. She looked beautiful, more beautiful than the pretty Belgian girls on the queue. Hello, I replied with a smile as I crossed my arms over my chest, looking my hands firmly under my armpits. As we didn't shake hands, there were plenty of sandwiches she was holding in her hands. I'm sorry for yesterday, she said. Finally, I thought to myself, but stretching my lips into a thin smile. All I said was simply, it's okay. Actually, I had lots of things running in my mind and I was in a hurry. She continued, trying to justify her stand. Relax, it happens, and that's fine. My queue was moving ahead. I was moving ahead with it, and she was moving ahead with me. But why were you in hurry? I asked. I had my team exam today. I had my term exam today. I had to prepare for it. She replied, oh, so you study here? Yes, I am doing my MBA. So, how did your exam go? It went well. We kept talking till it was almost time for me to buy my lunch. Oh, by the way, my name is Ravin. Hi, I'm Simar. She revealed with a cute smile. Along with me, she re-entered the band. She was with me when I bought my sandwich. I grabbed a poly bag from the shop. You need this bag, a poly bag to hold one sandwich? She asked. Not for me. Then I noticed her head again tilting on her left shoulder as she awaited an answer from me. She was cute both in her expressions and in her body language. For you to hold all those sandwiches in it, I answered, satisfying her curiosity. She was amazed at my chivalry. She smiled. Moments later, we were out of the van. By now, we had become better acquainted. She was basically from Gurgaon and had come to Belgium to pursue an MBA. She was in her second year, and her college was quite close to my office. She also had her immediate relatives living in Belgium. My chachu and his family live in Brussels. She revealed I visit them sometime. As per her school policy, she lived in a girls' hostel that was next to her college. It was nice to know that she belonged to a Punjabi family. I don't know if she felt nice knowing that I was Punjabi too. That afternoon, I ate my lunch walking along with Simar. Her hostel was on the way to my office. At the next crossing, where she was to take a different path, a few of her female friends stopped by in a car. They took the sandwiches from her and handed over her back to her. I realized that they were in a hurry and she was late in getting them their lunch. She quickly chatted with them and they dropped ahead in their car. She held a white bag on her shoulder and something struck me when then shook hands for the very first time. Interestingly, to say goodbye and see you soon, she was the first one to turn and move. I was still watching her, remembering something. She took out her iPod and plugged it into her ears and slipped her white purse onto her right shoulder. She pulled out the band and loosened her hair. I stood there noticing her walking away. All of a sudden, I felt a sense of desire happening. My mind told me that I had seen all this earlier and wondered where I had seen her. It took me a while to realize, damn, Simmer was the same girl whose back I had seen one afternoon at the same sandwich eatery. Chapter 10. It was my birthday and fortunately a Saturday as well. I had talked to my mom and dad early in the day. They were happy to know that all my Indian friends in Belgium were coming to my place to celebrate my birthday. The Indian community, which used to catch the evening, was had this protocol of setting up get together for every big and small event. And for the sake of celebration, every small event turned into a big event. On such get-togethers, the invitation used to go to almost every desi we knew by any means. Those gatherings were indeed a great opportunity to bond well together and overcome feeling of homesickness. A day before, while we all were in the bus on our way back from office, Sanchit had announced, "It's Ravin's birthday tomorrow, guys." And then the plan of a party at my place had been finalized even before I got off my bus stop. Basuda and Jyoti, "The folk will have to come as well," said Rishabh, one of our friends in the bus. I was proud that by now I was aware of everyone's name. Ayo from Brussels, it's hard to come out on a weekend. Nakochi, we need to finish some household work. Vasudha had answered in her typically South Indian accent. "Ask your husband to do that," said someone in the crowd, and we all started laughing. "Hey, everyone get your spouse and kids as well. We are gonna have fun. See you guys tomorrow," I said moments before we reached my bus stop. There were some 10 people, including a little kid, who showed up to celebrate my birthday. Sanchit and his wife were the most important people in the gathering. All of a sudden my empty all of a sudden my empty house had become very lively. As predicted by a few, Vasudha didn't show up, and as predicted again by other few. Excuse she gave for not attending that day was that she was not feeling well. The party began. The Indians were living up to their reputation for being highly enthusiastic. There was a great deal of shouting and hooting, and many whist and Many wished me happy birthday loudly. The little kid was crying while Bollywood songs were playing in the background. Everything was happening at the same time. I had welcomed everyone with juice and coke, but Rishabh had ignored the light rings. As he went ahead to open the refrigerator. Stella's, he exclaimed and pulled out a can for himself. Take out some more for those who want to have beer. I shouted. Sanchit left the glass of juice on the dining table as he heard the crowd. Stella's and went to check the refrigerator. Oh boys, a dozen cans, but you don't prefer alcohol, right? He asked, talking out one for myself. I got in the morning for you guys. Won't mind having one today. I chuckled. Ice cream, one of the ladies screamed as she eyed at the bucket in my open fridge. All of a sudden, I felt that everything at home had become vulnerable to inception to the guests. Anyone could open and check out anything. My house was under everyone's control, and my bathroom was under the control of the little kid who had soiled his diaper with some artistic coloring and made his mother's life more difficult. There was absolute craziness. Then suddenly someone screamed, "Let's cut the cake! Happy birthday, boy! Come here!" I went to the kitchen to get a knife when Sanchit came and whispered, "Hey, didn't you invite her?" Busy finding the knife, I answered. I did. What? Saturday is not off for her. She had her finance class. She had her finance class late this evening. A few weeks back, I got to know that Sanchit knew Simar. In fact, even before I was told, I had told him about Simar. He had met her a couple of times at the same sandwich dinner before I landed in Belgium. And in the past few days, the three of us often had our lunch together on the bench outside the dinner. Sanchit kept looking at me for a while and spoke again. Shall I ask you something? Having some idea of the what he was about to ask, I laughed a bit and said, Dude, enjoy the drink and give me one. I continued hunting for the knife. Sanchit's eyes were still on me, trying to steer Sanchit away from the topic that was on his mind. I spoke again. Thanks, in case you are the one who got the cake. Do you like her? He asked with a big gulp of beer. He was looking initially at me. Are you crazy? There is no such thing, I exclaimed as I found the knife under gas stove. Oh, here it is. Come, let's go cut the cake. Why are you avoiding my question? Sanchit persisted. The voice from the living room had suddenly become louder. Rishabh had cracked some chalk and everyone was laughing at it. Come on, Sanchit, we are just friends. I sat facing the kitchen door. Sanchit was behind me. You like her or not? He repeated. I turned towards him and took a deep breath. You know my past very well. Sanchit, I was going to continue, but Sanchit cut my mid speech. Yes, and because you wanted to come out of it, you left India and came here. Sanchit's voice was louder this time. I wasn't left with much to say. I stood still, vaguely looking at the knife which I was holding in my hand. Raven, it's been a long time now. Think about your future. Think about your family back home. Get yourself a life. Sanchit gesticulated with his hand, spreading his arm wide open in the air as he made an attempt to convince me. Sanchit knew everything about me. He was like a brother to me. He had groomed me in the initial days of my job, and now he was supporting me quite a bit in settling in Belgium, especially in getting started at the on-site office. I know he was absolutely justified in saying these things to me. Everyone close to me had said the same. My mom, my dad, the rest of my family, and my friends. I knew they were alright, but I wasn't wrong either. I knew I wanted a change and I felt left India for the same. But getting another girl wasn't the change I left India for. I wanted to experience a change in terms of my daily life, my surroundings, the culture, and people I interacted with. Of course, I found Sima to be a nice girl, but only to interact with. It was exciting for me to see her, but I never imagined myself falling in love with her. For me, love was just meant to happen once and it was forever. How do I feel the same hurt with love for someone else? Not that I never thought that way, but whenever I thought of it, I couldn't give myself an honest answer. And in the absence of my legitimate answer, I would fail myself to simply leave it all up to destiny. I am not saying that you should go and find happiness. All I am saying is that if happiness comes knocking at your door, then don't deny it, he said, gently putting his raised hand on my shoulder. His word didn't register in my mind. I stood quietly to let him finish speaking what his heart felt. Alcohol makes people speak from their thoughts. Sanchit was now speaking from his. I was yet to have my share of alcohol. I was yet to speak from my heart. What's cooking between you guys? Sanchit's wife came looking for us. Darling, we are wondering what to cook. Sanchit immediately responded with a smile. Oh, don't worry guys. Together we will cook with whatever is available here. And if there is nothing, we will order something from outside. Come on now, let's cut the cake. She held my hand and took me out. Soon everyone sang loudly in unison. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. This was followed by a lot of clapping. The cake was cut, simmered, and thrown around. A little later, we all cooked together, spoiled my kitchen together, and then ate together. There was an air of warmth and fun all around. At about 8:30 p.m., I bid goodbye to everyone and was left in a messy house. I was quite early for a party to be over, but many of my guests were living in Russell, and the journey back home would take them at least an hour. I kept staring at my messed up house and the dirty clutter and crockery under the kitchen sink. Cleaning up would be a huge task, so I changed my clothes into a comfortable vest and shorts before I was ready to dirty my hands. I took my clothes to 20 minutes to reset my living room. I was cleaning the utensils in the kitchen when my doorbell rang. I wondered if someone had returned to collect something they might have left behind. I went out to check who it was and looked through the peephole of my door. Shit, I murmured. It was Simmer with some girls. My heartbeat had accelerated all of a sudden. Instead of opening the door, I ran in. I looked at the kitchen conditions. I looked at my own conditions. Then I quickly looked for my t-shirt and jeans and got back into them again. I closed the kitchen door to hide the mess in there. Only then did I unlock the main door. Hello, I said, painting. Happy birthday, Simmer sang. Her head titled to one side as usual. I smiled. Happy birthday, wished the other girl, and shook my hand. Thank you, I responded. She is Tanu, my batchmate, and Tanu is Gavin, said Simmer, beginning the introduction. He works with fitness walls. You know, the blue-white colored building now? The one at the first right turn on the road outside our hostel. Yes, yes, Tanu, acknowledge. But I could clearly see that this wasn't the first time she was getting to know this from Simmer. I welcomed them into my house. They had barely sat down when Tanu's cell phone rang. She went out to take the call. I offered her my balcony for privacy, but she pointed outside, indicating that she would prefer to go out. I didn't stop her. I will be back in 20 minutes, she said to Simmer as she walked out. Simmer gave her a sad look. They also exchanged some strange glances and some girlish talk in sign language. I didn't understand what they were conveying to each other. It was a little uncomfortable for me to be a part of the silent conversation. Hence, I took the opportunity to go to the kitchen and grab some lemonade. By the time I returned, Sunny was gone. What's going on? I asked Simmer, offering her lemonade, but looking at the main door. Her boyfriend, Simmer answered. None of us felt the need to ask more or explain more. Sorry for the mess. Sorry for this mess. My friends were here. I mentioned. It's okay, chill, she said, squeezing her eyes shut as she pronounced chill. I wondered if it was the hungry lemonade which had made her squeeze her eyes shut like that. As we sat next to each other, I noticed that she was looking visibly uncomfortable. I assumed it had to do with the closed door and the conscious realization that it was just the two of us inside my home. I could see the discomfort on her face, in her body language, in her exaggerated smile, and even in her gestures as she repeatedly smoothed her hair. But before she could have felt more uncomfortable, I jumped in to change the strained atmosphere. I got up from my couch and began telling her about the birthday celebration that had taken place at home a short while back. Simultaneously, I started cleaning up the party mess. How come you turned up this late? I finally asked her the question that I had wanted to ask her some time back. She relaxed a little. I had that finance class now. I wouldn't have been able to come at all. But the class got over half an hour daily early. And when I mentioned to Tanus that it was your birthday, she got all excited about eating the cake. So she left the sentence incomplete but raised her shoulder as if the rest was self-explanatory. Oh, so it's because of your friend Tanu that you are here. I thought you came to wish me, I said as I walked by her carrying a stack of dirty dishes. I hadn't missed the opportunity to tease her. No, 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 it's not like that. Then what is what is it like? I smiled back, knowing the advantage I had. It's difficult to come out alone now, so I wanted Tanu's to accompany. I didn't pester her further because I was trying to comfort her. I also kept cleaning the mess. She was way more comfortable now and got up for the couch to check my collection of music CDs and a few books I had on my shelf. Eventually, we just talked as we did our own things, our voices rising and dropping depending on where we were. Gradually, she seemed to be feeling less nervous and was laughing every now and then. She appeared comfortable talking about various things. Later, she even helped me in doing the dishes. I too wasn't embarrassed anymore at the prospect of exposing my messy kitchen to her. I was enjoying her presence. I don't know why, but I felt different. I It all felt nice, maybe because it had been so long since I had been with a girl in the privacy of my house at the late hour. Perhaps that's why the air around us felt so stimulating, as if it was charged with some sort of mysterious, invo- invigorating vibes. We kept talking, after which we made some coffee and, along with the leftover cakes, shifted to the balcony. It was pleasant being there with simmer in the dimly lit balcony and witnessing the beautiful night full of stars. I wasn't able to see her attractive face clearly, but the lack of light actually made it more interesting for both of us to be out there. I don't know what exactly the darkness had to do with this, but it certainly added an overwhelming feeling into it all. Maybe it simply takes away the distance between two people while are talking and let them be themselves. When you are not able to look into the eyes of other person and read her thoughts, you don't tend to verify what she is saying. You simply talk her a being true to her words, and you love to be so more if she is gorgeous girl. It was refreshing out there, and the gentle air around me was filled with a wonderful blend of various scents. At times I smell the steam of coffee, at other times I smell the fragrance of simmer. We sat there for a long time, almost an hour had passed when the bell rang again. It must be Tannu. I will be back in 20 minutes. Simmer said, mimicking Tannu. Mimicking Tannu. She was about to get up, but instead I jumped out of my being bag to answer the doorbell. It wasn't locked, so to keep Summer comfortable, I welcomed Tanu back into my house. Sorry, I'm late. She apologized and walked ahead to me, look at her friend out there in the balcony. I told her and then added, watch your step. What are you guys doing? Tanush causally asked when she was able to dress simmer in the barely lit balcony. Nothing, much Simmer said. I don't know. I don't know. But the some reason Simmer didn't have any answer to her friend's question. Truth or dare popped out of my mouth. We were playing truth or dare. I don't know why I said that, but I said it. Oh, who won? She asked inquisitively. Simmer started giggling when she heard me cooking up this fake story for no reason. I responded, no, worry not. But there are strong chances that I may win. And then I tried to change the subject. Shit, I said, pushing a chair towards Tanu. Oh no, 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 we are already late. We actually need to rush. Tanu said instead. It will take me half an hour to cook. We can have dinner together. I said, I really didn't want them to leave. You cook? Tanu asked, putting her hands on her hips and giving me a surprised look. Yes, you know how to cook simmer? Simmer rose from her chair and joined Tanu. I was enjoying the shock I answered as I had answered before. Yes, and had the last sip of my coffee. They were quiet of a moment. Why? What happened? I asked as a question. I asked as I got up and put the cup and cutlery in the tray, ready to take them back to the kitchen. Let me help you. Simmer sportingly took half of the stuff from my hand and followed me to the kitchen. Because we don't know how to cook. How come being a guy, you know how to cook? Tanu explained how the balcony. There is nothing like I can't cook and all. It is up to your need and interest. I live alone and I prefer eating Indian food and hence I cook it I answered. Then I asked them how do you manage your meal then? Why now, Tanu? Too much walked in at the kitchen door. Simmer replied, we eat in our mess. Else we had stored surplus Maggie that we get from that Pakistani shop near the McLean railway station. Added Tanu. Oh yes, even I get Indian pulses and vegetables from that shop only. I added. Simmer, look at the time. Tanu pleaded. Oh shit, Raven, we need to go now. We are very late. Yes, and for sure we would love to eat some nice Indian food when we show up the next time. Tanu, Chuck. Simmer gave her an annoyed look. Sure, anytime, I responded. I knew that I wouldn't mind cooking for any of them. At the door, Tanu left first and Simmer stood for a last minute chat. Uh, Thanks for coming, Simmer. I really had a great time with you. I said before she could say anything. You are welcome, and I must say it was a pleasant evening for me. Sorry for being late, so chalo, you take care now, and I will leave. Happy birthday once again. I smiled and waved my hand. She left. I closed my door and walked back, feeling blissful. I felt the need to have a drink, and I enjoyed the last few hours of my birthday. I consumed 2 cans of Stella's. I emptied the second one listening to some music in my bedroom. For some unknown reason I loved using hours later my cell phone said beeped. I had long been asleep then but the loud beep and vibration of the phone on my bedside woke up me. Half asleep, I read the message. It was Herkimer. I was drunk but tried to read the message. There were 3 words on the scene: truth or dare.